Okay, we're looking at labs number 10, which is going to be the nervous tissue as well as the spinal cord, spinal nerves, and spinal reflexes. The first slide we have to look at is the large multipolar neuron smear, and this is going to have a number of parts labeled. It has the soma, which is the cell body. Within the soma we have the nucleus, which will be lighter in color, and in the center of the nucleus will be a dark circle called the nucleolus. We have cell processes coming off the cell. These are your dendrites and your axons, but you can't distinguish between the two of them. So we're just calling them cell processes. And inside the cell processes, we have neurofibrils, which are those parts of the cytoskeleton that extend down and keep those processes stiff. Around the cell, we have neuroglial cells, which are the support cells. And also found inside the cell, we have labeled Nissl bodies. That's the rough endoplasmic reticulum. And the ribosomes that give the cell a dark gray color, the gray matter of your brain. The next cell we have to look at is the neuromuscular junction. Your neuromuscular junction is where the neuron touches the skeletal muscle. And in this picture, we can see the neuron coming up. It branches. The branches are called axon collaterals. It will end in the synaptic terminals, which are filled with the neurotransmitters, and it will touch the skeletal muscle fiber. The next cell is called a teased myelinated axon. Now, your myelinated axon has the myelin layer over the axon itself. So when we're looking at this picture, you have to pay attention to the question I'm asking, because with this, we have the axon. You can see the bare axon there labeled where there is no myelin. But that bare axon area, if I asked you to name the space, is called the node of Ranvier. So in the node of Ranvier, the space, you see the bare axon. Then we have the myelin, and then we'll have the outer layer of the endoneurium wrapping over the myelin. So again, if I ask you the fatty layer, I'm looking for myelin. If it's the connective tissue layer, I'm looking for the endoneurium. And notice where the arrows are pointing. The myelin, it's pointing towards the center of the axon. The endoneurium, it's to the external portion of the axon. The fourth slide we have to look at is the peripheral nerve cross-section. Now with this picture, we have it magnified to 400x, but I'm also showing the 100x, so you can see the fascicle. Okay, remember the way your nerves are set up, you have your whole nerve is surrounded by the epineurium, and then you have the nerve broken down into individual fascicles, which are made up of numerous nerve axons, and they are going to be surrounded by the perineurium, and then you have individual nerves that are neurons that are going to be wrapped by the endoneurium. So if you get a little closer look up here, you have on this picture the cross section in the dark purple in the center is the axon. Then there's going to be a layer around it that looks kind of lavender in color. That is the myelin. And then the endoneurium I drew in red pen so you can see that outer thin connective tissue layer. The last slide we have to look at is your spinal cord cross-section. With your spinal cord, we have both gray and white matter. The gray matter makes up the center of the spinal cord and is called the horns. And depending on which side, if it's on the dorsal or posterior side or the ventral or anterior side, we will name the horns accordingly. Now the way you're going to tell the dorsal versus posterior is that in the front, the anterior median fissure, which is a big crack that divides the right and left sides of the spinal cord. Anterior means front, median means middle, and fissure means crack. And in the back, we have a posterior median sulci. This is going to be a smaller slice in the middle, in the back, to divide them into the right and left side. So if you know the back and the front, posterior and anterior, you can now name your horns, and you can name them either anterior or ventral, either name is good, or dorsal or posterior. Now with the horns, we have the anterior gray horns, the posterior or dorsal gray horns. We will in some areas have a lateral horn, not in this figure however. The horns are going to be connected, they look sort of like a butterfly shape, And they're connected by a strip of tissue called the gray commissure. Commissural fibers allow the two sides to talk. And in the center of the gray commissure is the central canal, which will be filled with cerebrospinal fluid. The white matter is called columns or funiculi. Again, either word is fine. I think column is a little easier. So we're going to have our posterior columns, we have 2, our lateral columns, 2, and our anterior columns, 2.